Hi everyone, it's me, Diana, the Doll Fairy. It's been a little while since our last episode in the Pokemon Zodiac series. Because of a few other projects I completed around Christmas time, I wasn't able to work on my Sagittarius doll in December. Now that it's January, I'm working as hard as I can to try and get caught up with the actual dates for each sign. Sagittarius is often represented by a centaur wielding a bow and arrow. Those born under the sign are said to be generous, idealistic, and have a philosophical way of thinking. Because of the centaur idea, I wanted to use a Monster High Avia Trotter as the base doll. As for the Pokemon itself, I thought about a few different horse-like Pokemon that I could use, including Rapidash, which a lot of people suggested. But in the end, I chose Xerneas because I was inspired by the idea of creating a bow that would look like Xerneas' antlers. Now, I am fully aware that Dolliteful made a doll based on Xerneas for our Kalos Trio collab we did almost a year ago. And also that this Xerneas doll is incredible on so many levels thanks to Catherine's amazing body modding skills. Her Xerneas has full antlers with resin gems that even light up thanks to the electrical components she installed in its head. While the Xerneas counterpart to my Yveltal doll will always be Dolliteful's Xerneas doll, I decided to make this doll also inspired by Xerneas, but the shiny version of Xerneas, and to take a slightly different approach. For shiny Xerneas, a lot of the coloring is actually similar to regular Xerneas, except that the blue portion is slightly more greenish, kind of like a royal blue, maybe? Azure? And the body portion is a silvery light gray instead of black. This interpretation of Xerneas would be a centaur, and instead of making three-dimensional antlers, I decided to make this doll look kind of like a Valkyrie, with an imposing Viking-style helmet featuring an antler motif. She will also have armor to go with the warrior look, and of course, a striking bow and arrow combo. The Avia Trotter doll has beautiful teal and blue hair that I decided to keep because it would go well with the blue portion of shiny Xerneas. My biggest challenge would be changing the colors of the actual doll, which is something I have not attempted before. I don't have an airbrush, so I decided to use the pastel method to change the upper body from lilac to deep royal blue. After masking off her hair and her lower body, I first sprayed 3 layers of MSC over the face and body. I start the face up by lightly sketching out her eyes and eyebrows. Then I get to work applying vivid blue pastels on her face and body. Thanks to the MSC, it sticks pretty well for a first coat. After the first layer of blue, I decided that it needed to look more teal, so I applied more of a teal color in subsequent layers. While working on building up the pastel colors throughout the whole upper body, I also started filling in the whites of her eyes, her irises, and her eyebrows with watercolor pencil. I added some pastel colored dots above her eyebrows that are reminiscent of the dots along Xerneas' back, as well as the gems on the antlers. I paint on a cream-colored stripe along her nose, both to imitate the actual pattern on Xerneas' face and to imitate the look of a Viking helmet that has one of those nose guard things on it. I think they're pretty cool looking, I don't know why. I'm also going to use this cream color for her lips because it will really make them stand out in the face. I also use acrylic paint to make the dots above her eyebrows, and her eyebrows themselves, look more bright and vivid against the deep blue color of her face. I then add some white acrylic to help the whites in her eyes pop as well. And with that, I think her face and her upper body color change are complete. Now I can remove the wrappings on her hair and body and get to work on her armor pieces and the horse body. I'll be using thin layers of watered down acrylic paint to make the body silver gray. Before I do that though, I want to get the armor pieces cut out of foam so that I can do all of the painting at one time. I draw out what I want the helmet pieces to look like and create a symmetrical pattern with paper. The helmet will have 2 layers to give it a 3-dimensional effect, even though the pieces representing the antlers will be flat, like hammered metal. I'll be doing the same thing for the bow to give it some extra dimension and some extra durability as well. I will eventually be adding gems to the helmet to imitate the gems that Xerneas has on its antlers, so I look through my collection of assorted multicolored gems. Shout out to my boyfriend's mom for giving me all these pretty jewels. And I pick out all the ones that I can find that are in a marquise style cut. And yes, I just looked up what they're called. I lay them out on my pattern just to get a rough idea of how they will look. After drawing and cutting out all of my patterns, I tape them onto a piece of craft foam and cut them out precisely using my X-Acto knife on my trusty plastic fish placemat. It's so satisfying when you can just pop out the pieces like this. Some of the pieces need to be cut twice, so I layer 2 pieces of foam and start slicing. I want the arrow to be thin and elegant, so I cut that from pieces of index cards, which I will later glue together and paint. Time for painting! The first order of business is to mix up a blue that matches the upper body in order to paint her ears, which didn't get the pastel treatment because they were covered up. After a couple of thin coats, the ears blend seamlessly with the body. I'm also using this same blue for the shaft part of the arrow. And now for the body. I mix up a light gray color and dilute it with a good amount of water. I also keep my water cup handy to continually dip my brush to make sure it stays watery and wet, I don't know. Then I paint the body carefully, keeping enough water in the mix so that it will look smooth after a few layers. My friend the Dolly Geek gave me a helpful tip, which is to use a very soft brush like this one I'm using. It seems to be working out so far. It looks streaky after the first coat, but this is good. We want to very slowly build up the color so that in the end it will look smooth and seamless. While waiting for that to dry, I prime my armor pieces with some gray paint. Then I go in for the second coat. On the camera it looks more like a creamy white color, but it will eventually look like a soft gray. It looks much better and more consistent after a few more coats of paint are applied. I must have done at least 5, maybe 6 full coats by the time I was satisfied with it. For my armor pieces, I'm using my blue with some added metallic shimmer on the shoulder pieces. I'm using a metallic teal for a couple of the other pieces that will go on the upper body. Then I mix a shimmery light cream color for the pieces that will go on the arms and legs, the helmet pieces, and the bow. Painting all of these pieces takes a bunch of layers of paint as well, but it will be worth it in the end. They'll look nice and shimmery. Once I'm satisfied with the paintwork on all of these pieces, I dilute some Liquitex matte varnish with some water and use it to seal all of the painted portions including the horse body, the ears, and all of the armor pieces. We're almost there now. Before I can assemble the doll with all of the embellishments, I add a couple of braids to her ponytail and her actual ponytail. Get it? I just feel like braids help to reinforce the Viking-inspired Valkyrie Norse warrior vibe. Using a hot glue gun, I attach the pieces of the helmet and the bow. I also use hot glue to attach the armor pieces to the body. I don't intend to ever remove them, so why bother doing extra work to make them removable? Sometimes I worry that I'm being lazy, but honestly, anywhere that I can save a bit of time and still get good results visually, it's a small victory in efficiency. Now for the fun part, the gemstones. I place them all in places that I think will look nice, kind of placing them in a way that looks like they're leaves growing off the branches of the antlers. I don't know, that just kind of makes sense to me somehow. Xerneas is basically like a forest spirit. Then I simply hot glue them onto the foam. I also decide to glue on a double line of gems along Xerneas' back, where the actual Pokemon has spots in the same colors as its antlers. I felt like the gray part of the body was a little lacking, so adding the gems lends some bling and interest to the body. To secure the helmet piece to her head, I used 2 regular sewing pins, one on either side. I like this because it's easy, technically removable if the need did happen to arise, and it feels very strong and secure. And you can hardly see them. Okay girl, ready to become a Valkyrie-style, shiny, legendary Pokemon-inspired, gem-encrusted archer? Let's do this. Whoa! You look ready to shoot that arrow at somebody. You wouldn't really shoot that at me, would you? Please don't.
Any ideas?
When it comes to this shiny Xerneas Sagittarius doll, I'm happy to say that she turned out exactly the way I envisioned her, and that's always rewarding when it's the outcome. I love the shape and style of her bow, and whether or not the size of it is realistic, I couldn't care less. It looks awesome. And the gemstones on her helmet and the bow are so sparkly and colorful that it makes me really happy. This doll was pretty different for me. My first time working with this type of doll, my first time changing the body color of a doll, using both the pastel and acrylic methods, and probably the first custom doll I've made that didn't actually involve any sewing, which felt kind of weird for me. Although I love sewing, I also love making armor pieces with foam like I did with my Solgaleo doll. Because of her vivid blue skin and her centaur body, Shiny Xerneas looks a little different from my other Zodiac dolls so far. But she has that striking, otherworldly quality that I think each of them has so far. They all look like goddesses to me. Like goddesses with all different themes and origins, but all goddesses nonetheless, from a different plane of existence and radiating a sense of power and majesty. I think it makes sense since they're all, so far anyway, based on legendary Pokemon. I'm excited to see where the Zodiac takes us next with Capricorn. I already have a plan for Capricorn after giving it a whole lot of thought, but I'm so curious to see what your ideas are. Leave a comment below letting me know which Pokemon you would choose to represent Capricorn. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure that you're subscribed and that you click the little bell to make sure you won't miss any of my doll repaint videos. I hope to see you all back here again very soon for more doll magic. Thanks for watching, friends. Bye!